Don't you think it's about time for a podcast that's more fulfilling? One that's about the vibrant exchange of ideas and perspectives that happens when we actually come together. We got you covered. Welcome to the Deep Blue Project, where the depths of conversation meet the waves of personal experience. This is a real, raw, and unscripted show about everything from leadership lessons to self-awareness, wellness, and the latest current events. We cover it all. We have a rotating cast of guests as we share our personal stories, insights, and opinions on the issues that matter most. Plus, we have a blast while doing it. The Deep Blue Project. It's not just a podcast, it's an experience. And now your host, Chris Workman.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Deep Blue Project. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I have my friend from Mansfield, Massachusetts, Chief of Police, Ron Sellon. How's it going today, brother?
Good. Doing really good, Chris. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Ron's been, I've known Ron for a couple years now with my dealings with the IACP. He's become a real good friend, and we chat about things going on, but he's been around for quite a few years, so he really knows the influx of that, and we're going to just kind of talk to him about what he's been doing, how he got into that, and some other things as they come up. Ron, if you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you're doing in Mansfield, how you got an ICP, things like that, and I'll give you the floor.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So, I've been police chief here since 2013. I've been a member of the organization since 1996, so a couple of years. I got involved with IACP originally. I wanted to get involved in the aftermath of Ferguson. I wanted to get involved with the Human and Civil Rights Committee. I'd been involved as a member of the legal officer section for a couple of years prior to that, but I really wanted to get involved with the Human and Civil Rights Committee. It was just, I knew that's where the conversations were coming. I knew that's where, everything was going to be headed. So I ended up reaching out to the chair at the time, Will Johnson, as well as the president, Terry Cunningham, who was from Mass, and I basically said, I want in. And spent about 4 years on the committee, did a lot of really great work, met some fantastic people. Then my agency won the Community Policing Award for IACP back in 2019. So, I decided to get a little bit more involved. And in 2019, actually, I decided to run for the Vice President Treasurer's position for IACP. I got elected to that position and subsequently got reelected to that position. On the PD front, there's a lot of cool stuff that we've done. We built a brand new police station, raised support for it, raised the money for it, built the station. Really proud of the fact that we had, I think it was like some ridiculous 4% change orders for the police department. Anybody that's ever built anybody that's built a public project like that knows that usually you're looking at 2-3 times the number of change orders. So spent a lot of time in the building process. We are probably best known for the style of policing that we have, which is there's a big prevention focus. And, we have a team that's private. It's a problem-oriented policing team that we started back in 2015. And from 2016 to 2019 was responsible for a 30% reduction in overdoses, almost a 30% reduction in domestic violence cases, in some areas of our community, a 55 to 55% drop in our general disturbances and domestic disturbances. So it was pretty successful there. But yeah, that's, I'm a big data-driven guy and, put a lot of time into that as well. So here in Mansfield, we're a less than 50 person full-time agency. We've got resources. Mansfield's about 24,000 people and change, 20 square miles, 22 miles south of Boston. We're at a really nice spot here. We've got, 4 different canines here that all have a different function. We've got, the typical SROs. We've got the multiple co-responder programs and such. So we like to invest in job expansion and job enrichment with folks. And when we hire people, we basically look for altruistic heart and a curious mind, see where it is that their passions lay and let them run with the ball.
I think sometimes people don't realize with us, as you have smaller agencies, that we're more in tune to the people we're bringing in, because you kind of have to fit, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot, is when you're bringing somebody in, because you only have so many spots or you have so many people, that it kind of has to fit what you're looking for, because you don't have that many spaces to put people, or throw them. Like a bigger department can hire anybody they like, and they can kind of maneuver them as much as possible. I think I have the problem when I'm trying to hire, and I'm trying to hire now. Actually, I got the cops grant this year, which is not easy to get, so I was very happy. And
Congratulations.
it seems like that pendulum is swinging back, right? So we finally had some people wanting to do the job. We have applicants in, so we're going through that now. But because we only have a small number of people, sometimes you find yourself, and I've been in this position, and I don't know if you have, Ron, is going, I might have 3 people I'm interviewing, but I might not hire one of them just because they may not fit. And it's going
Right.
to end up just being something that, and you don't want to do that, but here in Delaware, like Mass is small. So we are like, okay, we can make some phone calls and say, if you want to, they're hiring here, they're hiring there. So you can help the person, but you're just not going to fit here. And
Right.
I think that's one of the things that we find a lot of times for small departments. But that's why I stay where I am, and I like it, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle. As chiefs, we got to kind of find who fits.
That's
So,
it. And a lot of the times is that it's whether or not they fit into the culture. I'm the first vice president of the Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council, which is our regional mutual aid facilitator here. And I've been on that board since 2014. I was SWAT control chief for 6 years, crisis negotiations. That's where we have the bike team. We've got the regional traffic. We've got peer support now. You've got all these, we've got a drone team now, so canines and such. And that's where you really find those true opportunities to be able to allow people to really spread their wings and create, that job enrichment and job enlargement. As a dear friend and mentor who recently passed, Kenny Berkowitz, used to say, it's all about job enrichment and job enlargement for folks. And if they do that, then you can infuse the organization and those folks with purpose. And at the end of the day, you can offer $10,000 signing bonuses. You can offer this and pay and all these other benefits. But what people really seek is purpose. And
right.
if you can provide them that enriched feeling of that they're every day that they're going to work, it matters, then you're going to be able to recruit and you're going to be able to retain as well. And as you know, right now we're dealing with this it's a crisis across the board in policing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see, but I think I can start to see that pendulum shifting just a hair. I mean, it's not going far. And quite honestly, I think we all go, if we've done this for a lot of years, you see that happen all the time. Though it seems what we had to deal with in this case, it's been very slow. And I think it's been very slow for a couple of reasons. Some of them are, I think more people are looking for the enrichment than they are the money, but a lot of places are trying to still throw money at it.
And
But it's not happening.
yeah, and
It's not happening.
it becomes this proverbial race to the bottom, right? Like if everybody's offering $10 more and you're constantly chasing those dollars, the other part of it is when is enough enough? And with a lot of these applicants, if they're walking through the door for just the money, then you're never going to be able to retain them, because that person is going to constantly chase the money regardless of the talent. And so if you can provide them with opportunity, and like I said, we've got 4 different canines here, all different, and for an agency of less than 40 full-time cops, we've got just about 40 at this point. That allows a lot of opportunities for folks to be able to say, for special areas of specialization. And, it just provides such an enrichment, or an enriching job atmosphere and culture within the organization. And you'll find that people, it's funny, the more they interact with each other, the more they start to come up with, one of those canines was one of the officers here, Meg Burney, who walks into my office and says, I've got a crazy idea. And I was like, those are the best kind. She said, she's like, I think that we should have a safe search dog. And I was like, do you think so? And we talked it through, and she started applying for the grants. And I have a 14-year-old who has autism. So providing customizable operational plans and services for our more vulnerable populations like that is a cause that's near and dear to my heart. And now she and Mabel are trained, and they've been out a couple of times for children that are missing, or Alzheimer's, or parent or elderly that are missing that have Alzheimer's.
No, it's awesome.
And we're I just had a good friend of mine, the Westwood chief, Jeff Silva. He actually just did the exact same thing, and he ended up with Mabel's brother or sister, I think, is going to be assigned to one of his cops over there. So the cool part about it is when one of your folks comes up with a cool idea like that, and you're like, yeah, let's run with the ball. And then somebody else picks it up and goes, oh, I like that idea. And then all of a sudden you start to see this ripple effect where other people start doing it as well. And that's how you really you can positively change the entire profession, at least at a local level like that.
I think you see that proverbial shift. And I think that people kind of don't get that about smaller states, which is a fun thing because they don't realize sometimes that while the big states have everything, but the smaller states are so in tune. And we find that here in Delaware because Delaware is a unique state also. A lot of the things that we do here in Delaware, we do as a state, like our reporting systems, everything that we handle. Everybody from the north end of the state to the south end of the state uses the same things. So usually when that happens or somebody comes up with something and it starts working, it'll filter its way through the entire state after a while. We all do things in a similar fashion. Now everybody's going to have their ways. That's just the way it is. But for the most part, I think like you said, you get somebody that finds an idea and that idea works. And then it just kind of filters to the next one over. And then the next one beyond that. And that's what allows us to have that connection. So here's one of my thoughts, Ron, and I want to get into it because you guys are doing a lot of great things there, but I want to see your view because one of the things that I'm seeing, obviously, in my space and the things that I've been doing in the advocacy for officer wellness, I've been finding that in a lot of people I'm talking to, that one of the things that has to do with recruitment and retention is not the money. It's having that dedication to it to your people for their own personal health and wellness is becoming a very, very, very big key. 100%. And I've had that in interviews. I mean, I've had that asked to me in interviews. Initially, when this starts, we're like, oh, they're always asking for when they're going to have time off, or they're always asking how much they're. But while we may be taking it in a different way, I think after a couple of years of listening to that, I've actually started to delve into that and actually listen to feel like, hey, they just want to know, am I going to have the time for myself? Am I going to be able to have time to take care of myself or take care of my family or spend time with my family? Because that's a big thing with a lot of us. And me personally, what led through my journey was just that. We were not brought up that way. It was always job, do. And I think some of the things we're seeing now is just that. And I'm even trying to go to that where I'm trying to give my officers who don't like to take off, who don't like to use vacation time to go, hey, you know what? We have the ability now, we have the time. Go use some of your time and take some time for yourself. Yep. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more when it comes to that portion of the job and recruitment and retention.
You're absolutely right. That's a huge part of the whole equation, right? If you want to recruit and you want to retain, you need to also show your commitment to the folks within the organization and what it means for them to come into work every single day. And listen, we're always going to have those folks that every day if they can find a negative or pessimistic viewpoint to it, then it is what it is. But for the most part, if you show that commitment to that, then you're going to be able to retain them. I'll give you a couple examples, right? Like, so about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we've got the Officer Safety and Wellness Conference for IACP, and it's probably the most well attended smaller conference with IACP. We're going to have about I'm guesstimating this one's in Anaheim, California. It's coming up March 2nd through the 14th, I believe. And we will have anywhere in the neighborhood of probably 1,200, I bet, folks. And every year we seem to add about 100 or so to the attendance roster. During that conference, I started sending my entire executive board for my union out to the conference. And primarily because of the fact that, let's face it, if we're gonna have an issue is going to end up on either you or I's desk, it's going to start with the union e-board before it ever gets up to us. And so I figure at least if we end up facing a larger issue, at least they're going to be operating from the same sheet of music as me. They have access to the same programs and such. So, but one of the things I found with this conference, and it's really cool, is we ended up following it up at IACP with the officer and organizational. We added organizational last year as well. The officer and organizational safety and wellness section for IACP, and it's actually the fastest growing section in IACP. We've got, at last count back in October, we had over 600 members already. And what we're finding is that as people are spending more time together and talking about this as a topic, at that conference coming up in March, there are topics that are going to be ranging from the typical recruitment and retention elements, right, that you would expect to, the sleep schedule, things of that nature. But then there's also things like that I never considered, and things like postpartum considerations for officers. It never dawned on me that as we talk about our maternity or paternity leave for officers that are having babies, when they come back, there are considerations that we should be building into our policies that factor into postpartum considerations for officers. And it never dawned on me before, and shame on me, but it's items like that you pick up on, you're like, oh crap, that's a really good idea. Right. And as you show consideration for that, people know that if they know that something like that is being considered, it goes a long way towards your ability to recruit really good talent on the other end. You may be paying $10 less an hour for detail, right? But if they know that care and attention is being paid to those specific areas, it really helps out a lot.
Yeah, I think that So some of this has come from my position, or you want to say my interaction with IACP has ramped up. Of course, that Ron knows, but for everybody else who's listening knows, as the vice chair of the smaller department section, which for those who are part of law enforcement don't realize the smaller department section was part of another section before it moved out last year. So that's what allowed that to kind of grow. But through that, see, I've been able to branch out and meet the individuals who do these other to run these other sections, which is so awesome, because dealing with Jeff and Mandy with the officer wellness section has been wonderful. Their section has done a marvelous job. Having the chance to see what their section is doing when we were in Boston this year was fabulous. It's awesome to hear that they're getting such a response and having that many people, because you're seeing this happening across law enforcement everywhere. And I don't want to call it a movement, because it's really not a movement, but it's starting to actually pick up steam from those who back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm saying only 5-6 years ago, who were really starting to say, like, this needs to be a focus. Like, this needs to be something that we're really dealing with in law enforcement, because it's just going to make us better in the end. And it's going to make our officers better in the end. So it's awesome to hear that. And I know you guys are pushing that very much. And I know me as a police chief appreciate that. And as a member of the IACP, I appreciate that. So I think that is awesome.
And that's where I'll make a little bit of a plug for your section as well. Like the smaller agency section, nobody seems to realize that 88% of the agencies in this entire country, out of the 16,000 agencies in this country, 88% of them have less than 50 cops. And, the smaller agency section for IACP really does yeoman's work when it comes to advocacy and identification of priorities, and then, identifying those key areas of collaboration amongst the, because if for those that don't know, IACP has 25 committees ranging in like a number of topics, right? Like the human and civil rights that I was on, or you were talking Homeland Security, or you're talking Firearms Committee, et cetera. But those are limited to only 30 people that are presidentially appointed, by the president of IACP. Each year, the president appoints a full third of the committee as well as the chairs. On the flip side, we have over 20 sections, and those sections have unlimited membership. And with your membership, all you have to do is pay $50, and you can be a member of a various committee. And so whether you're talking about the smaller agency section, or whether you're talking about, I belong to the legal officer section, like I said before, or you're talking about the, the officer safety and wellness, there's, you name it. Right now, we're in the process of building out, maybe Vince will get mad at me for saying this publicly, but we're building out an intelligence section Because if there's one thing that we found is that, like, even if you have a JTTF clearance or a clearance of some type, you get either, it seems like we either get bombarded by intelligence reports or we get nothing at all. And even if we do, well, how do we make those actionable? And how do we work across state, federal, local agencies and promote the collection, the collation, and dissemination of all that information? So this section would be geared towards constantly facilitating that refinement of process and making it easier and simpler to access intelligence and share it and make it actionable as well. But those sections are fantastic areas of collaboration. And like, are you going to be coming out to the Policy Council in April?
No, because unfortunately, that is the time of FBI Leaders Conference is the same weekend.
Of course it is.
So I will be in New Orleans when you guys are in Texas, unfortunately. But we will be well represented. Chief Marshke, who's been and I have to give him props right here, and I'm going to do that today because he's been on that part, the head of this smaller department committee for a very long time, and a lot of it getting out of SACOP was his pushing, and I've known him for a long time, and he's a great man, and he's done a lot for small departments.
Sean Marshke's a great guy, and I was about to make a comment about the fact that don't worry about it, Sean will do all the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to send Kelly with him, so.
Perfect. So, but at Policy Council, so every April at Policy Council, for the listeners that don't know, what happens is that all 25 committees get together and all 20 sections. And, this past year, I was really proud that we were able to finally get each section their own budget through IACP.
Yep.
And now what we can do is so all the sections come out, those committees come out, and there really is, that's my favorite meeting of the year. I understand that there's the glitz and the glamour to the IACP annual conference. I get that. People check out the helicopters on the showroom floor and all this other stuff. But the Policy Council meeting is the one where the true priorities for the entire profession get really identified, and you collaborate with so many different areas. That's where you have smaller agency section together with officer safety and wellness, with all these other 20 plus sections and these 25 committees and the executive board and the larger board of directors for IACP. And everybody's basically, we'll be in Grapevine, Texas all at the same time. And that's where points of collaboration, and you can go, all right, it's important for our committee to do the following projects and get this stuff worked together. And that's where, if you can collaborate with enough people, you can even potentially get seed money. And it's really cool to watch as people's ambitions for their dreams for the future of the profession all merge together to create something special.
I got to see that for the first time last year. Was the first chance I got to go to that, and I have to agree with you 100%. I mean, I got so much more, I hate to say it, out of that. The classes are great. ICP is great. It's a great spectacle. But as a leader of a department, as somebody who wants to see small departments grow and having that, that voice, trying to have that voice for that, being able to do that, meet with yourself, which is kind of where we actually got the chance to really talk to each other for the first time, and meet with all these others, because you get the chance to go to the other meetings and meet with people and bring them in, just like you said. I got a lot out of that, and I think that's an awesome thing that they do every year and allows for that to happen, because you're right, that's where the stuff actually gets done, because you have the time to spend time to do that.
Well, and like, here's a good example, right? Like a few years ago, we were talking about, we have the Research Advisory Committee, which is composed of 30 people. Again, it's a committee of all police academics, and with such a need for additional evidence-based processes, we recognized, IACP, I should say, recognized the fact that we need more people involved. So what they talked about doing originally was, why don't we take the Research Advisory Committee and we're going to replace it with a Police Research Advisory Section. And I said at the time in the meeting, I was like, well, hold on a second. What if we, bear with me on this one. What if, rather than eliminate one, we create synergy between the two, and, we give them that opportunity? And what we did was, it was last year. Was it last year or was it the year before? I can't remember at this point. They all bleed together. But Dr. Cynthia Lum, Maris Harold, who was the chief in Boulder, just a wonderful woman. And Eric Duglikowski from Central Connecticut, I believe. Forgive me, I always mess up where he's from. But like all those folks, we got together and we said, all right, this is what we're thinking about doing. Let's create symmetry here and how you can all work together. And ultimately what they created was, and it's really cool, each year, it was 2 years ago, because this past year, what they did was they created the evidence-based policing symposium that they put on. It was actually this past in Boston. It was Sunday morning. And it's a 3-hour, 4-hour long symposium on the latest evidence on various topics: officer safety and wellness, recruitment and retention, what works and what doesn't. And from that, something as simple as safe injection sites, right? We had somebody that was interested in trying to do that in the community. And it's like, okay, well, you can't just tell people, all right, that's a really dumb idea.
Right.
You've got to go back to them and go, all right, well, here's the evidence associated with it. And we got studies that showed that if you put in a safe injection site, you can expect an up to a 700% increase in crime within, I think it's 1,000 yards radially around that safe injection site. So it's like, that's the type of stuff that's the type of ammunition that we can arm our membership with so that they can bring back to their communities and stop communities from, like, we've got this over politicization of decision making that is just crippling communities and police departments and chiefs across the country right now. And as we're trying to make decisions, it's really hard to do so when you've got, well-meaning but dangerously naive people that are like, I want to do this. And it's like, well, that's not the best idea.
We're finding that now the state of Delaware in the last year passed the law to allow the legalization of marijuana. This happened years ago. We went through it when Colorado and Washington were the first states to do it, and all the mess that they had to deal with. But it's a necessary evil that was going to happen anyway. But
Right.
What we're facing now is that you have all these individual towns, and we're dealing with that are trying to discuss and make ordinances or policies or procedures to handle whether they're allowed to grow there or whether they're allowed to have retail there. And these are stuff like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, guys. Like, we know people who have been dealing with this for years, but that's where this comes into play. This is where you or me as a police chief of a small department and through IACP or through that networking can reach out to these people and go, what happened to you? What did you do? What did you do in your state? How did it affect you now that you've had it for a year, 2 years, 3 years? And I think that's to your point about having that data to be able to support whatever you say in front of your mayors and your councils and whoever's trying to make that decision. So,
yeah, and that's really the value. It's what I love about organizations, whether you're talking about IACP or you're talking about FBI LEDA, is I tell people, get out, network, because it's that old Emerson quote, and I'm going to sort of paraphrase it a little bit, because his original quote was that every man, and I throw in and woman, that you meet is your better in some way, and you're going to learn something from them. Right. And there are so many people that are in that room. I guarantee you that somewhere within the labyrinth of IACP or FBI LEDA is the solution, or at least the direction towards a solution to a problem or a project that you're facing right now.
I don't think people realize. I mean, one of the reasons that I got involved so heavily with LEDA and ended up, being on the board for LEDA, and I'm going to get to your position now and what we're doing right after this, but that was kind of like my reason. The networking part made me a better chief. It made me a better leader of the people in my organization, because now I just opened up my encyclopedia of people that if I have a problem or if something happens, that I have so many people that I could just shoot out an email and reach out to who are going to or call even. I mean, I could pick up the phone because I know, Ron, if I had a question for something and I knew you, like, I'd pick it up and say, hey, Ron, did you ever deal with that? And people would, or they'd talk to you and you'd have a conversation and you could figure it out. Or they're going to point you to and connect you with someone else who may have that answer. So that's what the biggest part of a lot of the organizations that I don't think people see sometimes from the outside, or even people who may be listeners who are in law enforcement or in any kind of, because every first responder, firefighters, whatever, they have their organizations. But if you've never been exposed to that and realize that that's where you gain these relationships. That's where you learn these things. The class is great. You learn things through that, but the networking is so, so much more important. And
It
we were
is.
kind of discussing that before we got on with some of the things that are going on nationally that a lot of us have been involved in, of them cutting them resources possibly because, the NA, the NCC, FBI leads, things like that, Quantico leads, like things that municipals and state agencies get to partner with the national organization, being, the FBI a lot of times. They're the facilitators. However, the people who attend are people from all over the United States, and in some cases abroad with the NEI. And that's what's more important, is that networking part just broadens your mind and broadens your knowledge base
Yeah.
through other people.
Yep. I like to say that I'm constantly in search of solutions to problems I don't even know I have yet.
Yeah. So if we go back to that, so we obviously, you can tell while we're having this conversation, Ron has been heavily involved with ICP for many years. He's been the vice president treasurer since 2020, correct?
Yes.
So you're talking 4 more years. But he decided this year to throw his hat in the ring and actually go in for 4th vice president. And I think it's a great idea because he has, as you can see in hearing him speak and hearing his passion about it, that he has that wherewithal to want to do that. And I want him to kind of elaborate on that. I know this is not meant to be a political speech for Ron, but we have to prop up those people who are good for us and good for this profession to be in, because IACP, whether you like it or don't like it, because there's some people out there, I'm sure you don't, if you do or don't, but it is a voice for our profession and a big voice for our profession in the nation. So Ron, I'd like to know, what was your decision to run for that position?
So thanks. So I've got, what it basically came down to for me was the fact that it's the opportunity to really impact the way that things work down the line. And I'll throw a couple of things out there. One of them is the fact that we're in the midst right now of creating an intelligence section. IACP is in the middle of IACP. Like Vince Tolucci likes to say that it's this big, complex, complicated organization with a lot of moving parts, and he's right. It's got, we've got 34,000 members in 176 countries. We've got, a $42 million operating budget. We have over 120 employees. There are so many moving parts to it. But with that comes such tremendous opportunity to align so many pieces of that and really shift things in a positive direction, especially as it relates to our profession, which is, we've been taking it in the teeth now for a number of years as a profession. I've seen really good police chiefs, unfortunately, get railroaded or for political reasons end up basically getting pushed out, or they decide I've had enough and I'm just walking away. And with it, there's a tremendous amount of talent that ends up walking out the door as well. And one of the things that we really need to start doing is that we need to start advocating for stronger job protections for police chiefs across the country. But then there's also other things, right? We've got to continue the work that we're doing with officer safety and wellness, because it's going to contribute to, and we're seeing it right now, it's going to contribute to solving our recruitment and retention issues. And if the more that we can focus on that, then the more that we're going to be able to draw people into this profession where 30 years ago, there were less options than there are today. And we're competing with a lot more than we used to be. So there's so much to it. There's just the fact that I decided to throw my hat in the ring because it's time. I think that I know how every element of this organization works. I've built relationships across the board. I think that there is so much work that still needs to be done on so many different fronts. But, there are certain other topics that I'm working on right now. Like IACP rolled out the Home Safe project recently. And if you get the chance to check it out, it's on the website. But Home Safe is basically a collection of 216 different programs and policies as it relates to elopement issues for both the autism community and for Alzheimer's. And it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, like I said before, because my youngest son has autism. And I feel like, and unfortunately, a local jurisdiction next door to me recently lost a 6-year-old child with autism who wandered away. And unfortunately, she drowned in a local pond. And these are the type of things that Mansfield PD isn't going to solve that problem, right? Just like your PD alone isn't going to solve that problem. But through mass collaboration, somebody said to me, it's tragic and there's nothing that can be done about it. And I said, I completely disagree, because we've got 34,000 people in 176 countries, in 25 committees and 20 sections. You can't tell me that there isn't, through mass collaboration, subject matter experts that we can tap into and build something better that can help prevent those type of things, in addition to all the other work that we're doing right now. And it's the fact that I love the organization. I love my profession. I love what I do. It's about understanding the fact that I feel like I can contribute at a high level at this point. I've been managing that aforementioned $42 million budget. We managed through some big crisis. Don't forget, 2020, we were supposed to have a conference in New Orleans. Yep. That got canceled because of COVID. Then in 2021, we were supposed to have a conference in New Orleans.
Yeah, hurricane.
And the hurricane canceled that one too. And, those challenges, we generate a lot of revenue, just like I'm sure FBI LEADA does. We generate a lot of revenue from those conferences. And that should have, by all accounts, killed or at least damaged significantly our financial position. But we actually came out of those stronger than we were before, because of the fact that we handled all of those situations deftly. And we've got a great team back at Canal Plaza in Alexandria at headquarters that, we planned ahead, and sure enough, everything that was pre-planned for worked out. But that's kind of my 10,000 foot view of it, is that I'm running for this position because I believe in the profession, I believe in the organization, and most importantly, I believe in the people that represent all that organization, all 34,000 of them. And we've been able to increase that number, our membership number, by about 15% in recent years. And I feel like that is representative of the fact that people are looking for solutions. Right. And whether they are looking at FBI LEADA, whether they're looking at the NA Association, whether they're looking at, IACP, the fact is that people realize that they can't do this alone. And we have to work together and be able to collaborate and put all those pieces together in order to find the solutions that people need.
No, that is awesome. And before all of my friends who say that I have my issues with the IACP, I am going to be upfront. I am not going to lie. There are times that as a smaller agency, and I've said this publicly, so me saying it now with Ron, it's not a secret that I had a problem, and still kind of do in a little most way, but that's my reason for doing what I'm doing, is with the smaller department sections, because we all know that a lot of people feel that the IACP, is about the big departments. Well, I have to say that when I made choices to do what I did and get involved with the smaller department section and get involved and be with Sean and talk with others, I put my money where my mouth was. I didn't just complain. I decided to be part of it. So, and most people know I have a podcast, dude. I have a big mouth. So sometimes I do say what I need to say when it comes to that. Ron's told you he's got less than 50 people. That's smaller department sections, people. That are the people that you need to, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't make anybody else worse than anyone else. I'm not saying people are bad or they're wrong, because everybody who steps up, trust me, this is not an easy thing to do. Most of us do not get paid, whether you believe it or not, to put all of our time and attention into these things. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of attention, and it's a lot of things that these guys do and other people do, and I congratulate them for all the people who have ever been part of ICP or FBI LEAD or NA or any organization. I applaud them for what they do, because they don't get paid, and they're doing this because they want to make the profession better. And I think that that's the first and foremost thing that we always have to look at. So my thing is, before anybody calls me on that is the deal. And I have no problem saying when things are not correct, but I also need to step up and say, when there's people out there trying to make it better, you really need to back those people, because then you have no complaint. You can't sit in the shadows and complain, but when the time comes to step up, you don't do anything. Well, then you need to just stay in the shadows and stop complaining. Yeah. So, Ron, I appreciate what you're doing, man. And since we've met, I got nothing but respect for you, brother. I know what you've been doing. I know what your department does. We stay up on things. I think personally, you're a good man for the job. You do a lot of things out there with your department, as you've explained, and the things that you do there with ICP, as you've been doing for years. And the last thing I'm going to bring up, because I've been interested in this and I've kind of been watching it, and a lot of people kind of tune into it because of Simon, and that's the curve. So I have a better understanding because I read some of the things that go out and some of the things going on, and a lot of the stuff that's put out there is great because it's more in in a leadership role and what we're trying to do. So how's your collaboration, like, because it's more of a collaboration of the police end and the private sector or organizational sector when you have individuals like Simon Sinek, because everybody knows who Simon is. But how has that kind of worked to help you also kind of grow that leadership mindset position?
Yeah, it's funny because it was actually my wife that turned me on to Simon Sinek's work, just like Seth Godin and some other people. This over a decade ago, and one of the great joys that I had was being able to last year in San Diego introduce her to Simon before he spoke. So I was asked to join the Curve, and the Curve is effectively so Chris Young, who was the retired chief from Mountain View, California, awesome guy. The current chair of the Human and Civil Rights Committee at IACP. He is now the executive director of the Curve. And the Curve's basic goal is to examine the culture of policing and identify ways of improving it. And because there are some things that we do culturally that are great, there are other things culturally that we don't. But that's one thing that Simon really does just brilliantly, is that he is able to identify very, very complex issues and break them down into simple terms within an organization's culture. And simple things like, he tells a story about how early in his career, he was tasked with, he decided to volunteer for the presentation of a pitch for something in the company that he was working in. And I'm going to butcher the story. However, he was all excited because he and his coworkers, they worked their butts off for it and they pitched it and they didn't get the account. And he thought, oh crap, I'm about to get my butt handed to me. And, his boss at the time said, not only did you not get the account, but what we're going to do is we're actually going to promote you, because it wasn't. And the lesson that came from that, and this is something that we try to work on in our profession. I know growing up in my organization, it definitely wasn't this way. I don't know about yours. Let people fail, but then reward them for the initiative and not necessarily the results. Because if you only reward people for results, then what's going to end up happening is that people are only going to care about the safest choices, and they're not going to tackle the most complex problems. And it's things of that nature, especially in policing. Like I said, in my organization, I grew up in this organization. It was not a place where you wanted to make a mistake. It was because not only would you get hammered from above you, but your peers would just hammer you from the sides as well. And it was just very much an organizational culture where people wanted to play it safe all the time. Mm-hmm. And if you play it safe, then you're never going to progress and you're never going to make advancements. And, that's not the type of environment where Edison creates the light bulb, right?
Right.
So what Simon has is there's about a dozen of us or so. And, right now there's actually a leadership summit in April that's coming up. It's in coordination with the California Police Chiefs Association. It's a one-day training that's basically being put out, and it's kind of a trial balloon, right, of some of the stuff that we've been talking about. And essentially a big part of, and I don't want to speak for Simon or for Chris and the Curve, but a big part of the Curve is all about, finding out, examining cultural elements that we can improve upon within our profession, and then working on helping make our middle managers really the leaders that they need to be in the future, and helping them to set the tone from a cultural perspective.
Nah, that's awesome. I appreciate you answering that for me, because I've always had, like I said, I've been keeping up on it, and it's something new. And when something new comes out, and look, there's nobody more skeptical than cops. I mean, they're just, we are the worst at anything that comes out. We're scrutinizing it. We're looking at it. We're going, what the hell? Who the hell are these people? Like, what is going on here? What the heck is going on? So I think that I appreciate you giving me kind of a little bit more of that understanding. you kind of get that feel because they do a good job putting stuff out, but then you're going to be skeptical until you kind of see it, and I think people are. So that gives everybody a little bit more insight on that, and I appreciate you doing that, Ron. Believe it or not, we get to have fun in this job. You don't have to always be serious. So we've been on for a while. I think, Ron, I'm gonna let you wrap it up with anything that you want to kind of put out there. You leave us with a parting thought, something that's going on, or what your thoughts are for the future as you're going along, because you're involved in a lot of these things, and I appreciate you for being that way.
I really appreciate it. It's no, it's just I would just, I guess, for a parting thoughts, I think that I would leave everybody with, let's continue to innovate. Let's there are vast elements within this country that would like to see our entire profession just disappear entirely. And it's our job to prove them wrong. It's our job to rise above that, and it's our job to basically bring along the next generation of leaders. And whether or not, and again, I'm going to go back to organizations like IACP, FBI Leader, the Naval Postgraduate School, things of that nature. It's about finding those opportunities for people and then allowing them to explore them and come back with what might be deemed or defined as a crazy idea, and then let them run with it a little bit. And if it doesn't work out, then all right, fine, it didn't work out. Well, guess what? What did we learn from it anyway? And what can we work on moving forward? And more often than not, though, what I found is that by doing that, man, some of the stuff that these guys and ladies come up with is just, there's some great ideas. And it gives me a lot of pride and a lot of hope for the future, and the fact and who we're bringing into this profession, and who's going to be leading it moving forward.
Thank you, Ron. Well, I'm hoping that you got some time, a lot more time to put in, because when you win that position, you're going to be here a little bit longer, buddy. So, and we're all going to be more than happy for it, because I think we're trying to find that I think I'm seeing with a lot of people that I get to speak with in and on this podcast, and even just out in the world, and the people that we all get to interact with, this profession is in a good spot. It's really getting there. But you can't quit. You got to keep moving forward, and you got to keep giving these people, like you kind of just said, you have to empower your people to want to move forward. Give them the reins to do what they can do for the job. So I thank you, Ron, for taking your time today. I know you're busy up there, and you're trying to running this campaign ain't easy. I know that. I've known a few people who have done it. So yeah, I wish you the best.
Back from North Carolina, got their endorsement.
Yeah, I see. Got quite a few endorsements coming up. So please. You know what? Check out Ronnie on LinkedIn. Sure, you got a website yet for your IACP? So we'll put that out for people so they can check that out.
Yep, RonaldSellon.com. Simple.
Yep, simple and easy. So go out there, check out his webpage. If you're an IACP member, if you're a voting member, please check it out. And Ron's doing a lot of great things, and look into the things that he's done already. Ron, I appreciate it again, brother. You stay safe in Mass, and I look forward to seeing you soon, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Take care, brother.
You've been listening to the Deep Blue Project. As a father, husband, friend, and someone who loves to chat about anything and everything, Chris brings over 3 decades of public service experience to the table. With a background in firefighting and law enforcement, along with degrees in criminal justice and behavioral science, he's seen it all, and he's learned a thing or two along the way. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on LinkedIn and X at Deep Blue Project. Find our website at deepblueproject.com. And to reach out, send an email to deepblueproject@outlook.com. Keep keeping it real. And we'll see you next time on the Deep Blue Project.